Back in the car. That's always fun. Of course. Thank you.
What? Again? Jesus. At this rate, I'm gonna, never mind. Never mind. You have a worse bladder than I do. Like, what the hell? Like, quit drinking. Not happy.
Free cream.
Thank you.
There
Thanks again.
I know.
We're coming over to bother you.
Well, that's good, because I probably need it.
You need somebody to bother you.
Except you might get in trouble from Twinkie. He's a hard worker.
Yeah, that's good.
He probably doesn't like disruptions.
I really like to see these people who are busy at school. It's good. Is that your pillow?
Yes.
Oh.
I decided I was always getting, no, I decided I was sick of getting sore from sitting on these chairs for so long.
Oh.
So,
You didn't turn them upside down or anything? No. Okay. All right. We're waiting on the others. They're supposed to be here at 7, so not too long.
well, it worked out good. I only started getting sore last night after sitting probably about 5 hours with Murray.
Murray. Oh.
Usually I was getting sore after 2 hours.
Oh.
I was really starting to hate these chairs.
It's better than sitting on the floor. I'll get this one turned around. I don't know how many are coming. My boss is the one that does the phoning, so
Oh, he's the project manager, is he?
yeah.
Okay.
I need the oxygen.
Oh. And he does all the extra work?
Well, he phone and he notifies everybody.
Okay. Why does he have the oxygen?
He had mark on this part of the insides.
Okay. Okay.
And he's on medication for it. But and his wife is not too well. She gets kind of fat, you know. It's like, and their brother, you know, the other girl, not the young girl, but the other one that comes. Her husband just passed away not too many. I wrote a year ago. I'm not sure it was a year ago or even that.
There's a lot of passing away going on. Murray lost his wife a year ago. That girl Karen that always comes and sits by herself over there. She used to be married to a minister, reverend, and he passed away, so she's by herself too.
He had asthma, very bad, very bad, and he's always had it.
Up until recently, I always, just looked at asthma as a slight breathing problem, but I didn't realize all these other aspects of it.
Well, he had it when he was just a little, like Cam's brother, and he had it when he was just a little boy, I guess.
A number of times.
Yeah. So it's been really hard to.
My cousin has it, and my uncle was in football, so Hudson was automatically inducted into football because he was Uncle Morgan's son. And they said, well, Hudson would have gone somewhere if it wasn't for his asthma. Hudson's huge, and he's about 250 pounds or something, and he's not chubby. So the only thing that held him back was the asthma, and I didn't realize that I always just thought it was a slight breathing problem, but I was ignorant.
And his granddaughter right now is very, very ill. Belmont, I can't. Yeah.
Is this more asthma stuff?
Yeah.
Oh.
She's really, really.
So it's genetic also?
Huh?
It's genetic also?
I think so. I think it must be, yeah.
Okay. I don't know, so I'm asking people that know more than I do.
I know.
It must be. She was born.
Yeah, and she's passed out a few times now.
Oh, yeah, it's genetic. Yeah, you said it's genetic. It's also probably she inherited it
Yeah.
through the family.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well, that was that other guy that your mom was with.
Nope.
Exactly. At least you can joke about it. So many people nowadays are too dang serious and they don't know how to laugh.
No. It's hard to laugh these days, there's so much going on in the world. We went to the concert at the church up the highway here the other day, and the little kids, get up.
Like at the church at Selwyn Outreach
Yeah,
Center?
yeah.
Murray missed that. He was here talking to me.
Oh, was he?
The fellow showed up later and he sat over there and he knew Murray and they started chatting back and forth. That's the only reason I know him. And he said he had just, yeah. Murray's a bit of a workaholic. Oh yeah. He's, he'll be sitting here and he'll say, I just finished a job. And it's like, well, when did you not finish a job?
Yeah. He's friendly though, isn't he?
Well, apparently he used to come and sit here with his wife all the time until she passed. So they kind of know him from, his previous circumstances.
Right.
Apparently he's been quite involved in this region for a long time.
Oh, good.
I went to Bruce Custom Fabricating and then I was here after that and I was talking to him and he said he was going there. So when I went back in regards to that, I mentioned him to them. And, I thought I was doing him a favor. But apparently he's been dealing with that for years and I just made myself look like a fool. He had more experience than me.
Yeah. Oh, well. Yeah, it's hard.
But Murray said in regards to one of his businesses from years ago, they came to him about originally they came to find out about putting in some advertising. And they were going to do it. And then they came up with a better offer or whatever it was. But he's known them since then, so like 30 years at least or something. Apparently he's done a bit of everything. We were talking about houses the other night, and I mentioned the glass house on Stony Lake, and he said, well, my friend designed that. So, you never know what's going to come out of his mouth. But he's quite well connected, and he knows a lot more than you would think.
Oh, there they are.
You ever seen that glass house?
Yeah, well, that's why I mentioned it, because he was talking about this big, luxurious house, and I said, well, the only thing that I've seen is that glass house on Stony Lake. I drove, you may have seen Craig Hamilton's name on the real estate stuff. I went out with Craig when we were young to go to,
I don't know. She's a weather. I don't know. So.
I moved my butt to him.
Ronnie Hawkins' son when he debuted. Yeah, when he debuted out on Crow's Landing, I think it was. Craig drove the boat, so we went from Craig's, which was basically by me, up to Crow's Landing. So I went right by the glass house. Well, it was still light out, but we came back in the dark, and Craig had been drinking all night. I didn't think about that until after, but Craig knew the water very well.
Yeah. You gotta know it up there.
Yeah, so I can't actually say anything negatively because he knew what he was doing and he knew the water. He was able to run that little boat full throttle
I'll give you the
and take us back.
When you're up there again. You probably have to do it. Yeah.
Sounds like you need to streamline.
Streamline?
Yeah, so you can get your wallet out easily. Well, you should quit shopping when it's an exercise project to get your wallet out.
Are you sure? Did you learn that from?
Well, the new fad is to streamline your wallet, and they're selling new streamlined wallets that only hold credit cards. They don't hold any money at all, basically.
can hang out to it. Wants to run away. Two more, right? Oh dear. I said to Kim, I'll be there, because I never know when I'm going to know about it. I'm always wondering what I'm going to do. Yeah, and then I keep staying here.
Well, especially nowadays, you never know when everything's going to quit work, and then you're going to need real cash to actually pay for something or survive.
There he is. You have some money.
Oh, well, Sam was doing the same tonight, so
Oh, I think, you paid the last,
I don't know.
because I asked him.
So who do I talk to find out about how to deal with the teas here? Well, you know, I'm still being made to wait for what comes after the spanking.
You're going to graduate yet.
Oh. Well, I just thought she was a really big tease and made me wait a long time.
No, not yet, don't worry about it. No,
Yep.
and I'll sign it. What's that for? I need to give me $4.
That's great.
Yeah. Oh, what? Yeah, yeah, fine. No.
Did you get the 5 already?
No way, I'm giving my money away.
I finance, you got to give it. I finance stuff.
Okay, I'll put that in there, Ross. And if Joan or any of them, if Joan didn't get one, I needed it, but,
I didn't get an app on an answering machine, but nobody answered, so. And they called me, and she was a little scared of the weather, so I said, well, it'll need to be there if you want to contact me. It was snowing down our place, the driveway was covered white. This afternoon, I thought I was surprised when I put the lights on the window and the whole wind. This is scary.
Was there only one family named Daladon in Lakefield?
Yep. Well, no.
Because I went to school with the son. He was older than me. He was quite the idiot.
Checker drivers, I'm not sure where.
Back in the day, Daladon was busted for carrying a 357 Magnum. What kind of moron would think you would need to carry a 357 Magnum in Lakefield?
Big trouble, I guess.
Uh-huh. He didn't like anybody.
What would you like to read?
I can't remember his first name. He was always just Daladon.
Him and Dawn.
That was probably the parent. Mm-hmm.
What school was that? Lakefield.
Yeah. He hung around with Scott Hockaday. He was younger than Steve, I think. Yeah, Steve was the older brother of the two. Well, I think Daladon's first name was John.
Yeah, he's the youngest.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, take that.
I was in between the middle and the youngest Bolton. Derek was younger than me, and Jamie was a little older than me, and then Robert was off in the distance.
I had to travel to get them over there.
Somebody had already stolen them all, so I found them on the table over there, and I stole the rest of them.
I had to go to the other wicket. It's over there.
I decided to look around because I didn't feel like walking over there.
That's supposed to equal two teaspoons. I meant to say, I'm supposed to eat a spoon per foot of it. So that was what happened here. We could eat on 2 teaspoons, and that's what they do. Although I think you're inside the head with the chin. Oh, no, I think it's one other thing.
Right inside the door on your left.
That's it?
Probably coming out of his headset. But I'm not sure. It's nice to actually hear something, some environment. Everybody's so afraid of everybody else nowadays. They're afraid to live.
You guys are just too efficient.
Sorry, medium 60.
$10 at Walmart plus the $6 for shipping. That was a small investment. Exactly.
Well used to.
Well, it's already come in handy. I sat here the other night talking to Murray for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, and exactly, especially in these chairs. They're not built for comfort, which makes no sense to me, because shouldn't they want you to stay in here? I think so too. They want me to stop spending my money. Mm-hmm. Are you folks staying local for Christmas?
Yep.
Okay.
How about you?
I'm coming to crash at your place. I never behave myself. My favorite story is the story I was told by Rebecca about her daughter and he's a step grandfather or whatever you want to call him, but I don't know what the proper term for that is. She went to bed on Christmas Eve, and he went out and made the ski tracks in the snow and made the footprints for the deer and put the droppings on the ground, like the deer had been standing there, relieved themselves and that, and then he threw a present on the ground like it had fallen out of Santa's sack. And that's my favorite story ever. Yeah. That was, they lived up by Young's Point at that point in time, but they're now living out at Warsaw, and I really don't talk to her or the family. I never talked to the family to begin with, but I have no, means of finding out any future events.
So was there any small children, any little kids?
There was a 9-year-old girl, well, 9 years or less. She was probably 8 then.
They looked up to Young's Point at that time?
Honey Wagon's Disposal used to be there. Mr. Sloan. Byron Sloan was the son. Right before that. They cleared a big area out front and they're building houses. Well, this is one of the houses, basically a cottage that's back on the water, right on the point there. Well, that's where they lived at that point in time.
Sloan, they had some of these right, didn't they? They rented cottages and everything. Yeah.
Well, for some reason, everybody had no problem with his name, but they had a problem with mine. As soon as you changed that B to a T, they all fell apart. I have no idea. It never made sense to me because I was always used to it.
So where did you live up there?
The house is just before the 9th line, the second driveway before the 9th line. I used to ride the bus with the Garbets and with Laurie Sikma. Sherm Edwards was my bus driver. He threw me off the bus. Jim Carson lived down the road at that point in time. I rode the bus with his daughters later on in life. I ran into them again, and they still acted the same way, except it wasn't Daddy, the police officer, to sweep in and deal with the trouble that they started. It was the other sister. And when I ran into Jim at that new hotel in Lakefield, he was sitting there. I always forget the name. I guess you're probably right. He was sitting there with people, and as I was leaving, I said to him, well, I was chatting with your daughter just a little while ago, and you know what? It happened exactly the same as it used to be, except it wasn't the police officer getting mad at me this time. It was the other sister. When I used to walk home because I was kicked off the bus, I used to always stop in and talk to Kit Carson because Kit would be standing there, and I'd be walking by and I'd see him, so I'd just wander over and hang out with him because there was nothing to go home to anyways. Well, back in those days, I got 3 channels? They've had cable at the 4-way stop forever, and we couldn't get TV until the satellite systems started coming out. And we didn't invest in that until the new ones that are cheap.
So which is the 9th line? Is that the one, the Bridge North?
The Bridge North Lakefield Highway is the 8th line.
Oh, that's the 8th, so the 9th is above that.
Mm-hmm.
You know where Jimmy Carson
Okay. I know the 9th is there. The 10th line is the one on the left. That's where Sweetings live.
That's where Del Mastro's lived. That's how I met Dean Del Mastro. Jason Maxwell told me to come over and go skating. You know, I didn't know anything any different, so I said sure. And he said, well, we got to go down there and skate on the pond across the road. No big deal. Jason Del Mastro came down to be the big tough guy. And of course, you know, I stood up to that. And when Jason couldn't deal with it, he called his older brother. So that was my experience with Dean Del Mastro growing up. He was just a bully to me, and I never would have trusted him with anything. But I always had a lot of respect for his father. It's too bad he passed away young. Hank Del Mastro was a decent fellow as far as I'm concerned. When everybody hated me, he stuck up for me. And the other person that did that was Mr. Gage. He lived down on the 7th line on the water when it hooks. He lived down there. His son was Buddy Gage. Buddy was in my grade. Buddy was what you know, was commonly referred to as a brown noser, like Mr. Wilson's son Jimmy. I don't have a problem with them. That's just the label that everybody gave them, right?
I don't know how you remember them.
Well, you probably know Mr. Wilson.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
Well, he lived on the 9th line. And I ran into him a little while ago, and he said he's moved. I didn't realize that. And he lives down by close to where Redpath used to be. I don't know what's there now. But he said he told me that's where he moved to. But Mr. Wilson was always nice to me. But in the academic community, the only person that was ever nice to me was Mr. Allen. When he became principal of Lakefield School, he didn't treat me like the other people did. He was the only person that ever...
Last name, Alex?
Mr. Allen? Apparently everybody knows him because he played...
Allen?
Yeah, because he had something to do with lacrosse.
Yeah.
Oh, I mentioned the wrong thing, did I?
I know. He was a good lacrosse player.
I only know about that because Derek Crow was big into lacrosse. He says, oh yeah, Bobby Allen, oh yeah, Bobby, and that's all I know.
He's a really small little guy, too, skinny.
He didn't act like that.
No, I know, but he was a great lacrosse player.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the impression that I'm getting, but I don't actually know the details, so I can't, you know, I can't mouth off about that and say, well, he was a great lacrosse player, because I don't know.
He married a Lakefield girl.
That looks like Murray's coming. It's a big white van. I just don't know if he has lights like that. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Magnetic windows. Very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pat, the guy knows her well. In fact, her dad was the sports writer for the Examiners and Nick.
Well, when Gilroy took over there, that was the biggest fault in the whole damn system. He never should have been allowed to be Mr. Gilroy. They made him the principal of Lakefield School after Allen. Gilroy and McCormick were at PCBS when I was there, so I experienced them in person. But I heard that they were both thrown out of Crestwood. Like the parents said, we don't want them around because McCormick was caught. They called him a pickpocket. All the students called him a pickpocket, and they said he was caught stealing from Food City or whatever it was on Brock Street back then. It's Price Goer, yeah, no. But Gilroy at the same point in time was caught coming out of the girls' change room. Exactly. And so, you know, nobody knows for sure what he was doing, but it was suspicious. So they didn't want him around either. So the parents said, get rid of them. Well, all the school board did was transfer them to PCBS. Gilroy was the vice principal, McCormick was the principal. When I got sent to, I had taken computers at Sir Sanford and that. I was one of those computer geeks, technically, you know, that you see in the movies. And yeah, I spent my summers doing that kind of stuff for 3 years. Well, I never passed my computer course at Lakefield. So when I took computers at PCVS, I got removed from my computer class for helping my fellow students. They'd see me sitting there after a project was assigned, you know, I'd finish it in 10 or 20 minutes because I knew what I was doing. And they wouldn't know what they were doing because it was all brand new to them. So they would come to me and ask me. So my teacher, who had 6 months at Ryerson, literally went to the principal and said, I've lost control of my class, and it was all my fault. So I got removed from my class for helping my fellow students. So when I met McCormick, he was psychoanalyzing me after me being there for 5 minutes. And he was pretending that he knew everything about me. Or he was telling himself that anyways. He thought he knew what he was doing. So yeah, McCormick was an embarrassment to begin with. And Gilroy, he was discriminatory. He was, Chris Boyd's gay now. Chris was probably gay back then, but he was in the closet. But Gilroy targeted him and a bunch of others. And you know, in the alternative crowd, what you would call the alternative crowd? Well, Gilroy basically targeted all them. And that was who he was biased against the whole time. And then they decided to make him principal of Lakefield School. Yeah.
I wonder.
Yes.
Makes you wonder.
Well, that's why you appreciate the good people. Like when I saw Mr. Rennie here, I had to talk to him when I finally remembered who he was, because he was never judgmental. Like they talked about me ahead of time. You know, when I showed up there, my reputation sort of preceded me, even though it didn't exist, but it was predetermined that that was what I was. Well, he was never like that. He didn't prejudge me or anything. He didn't open his mouth. If he seen me in the hall, he didn't yell at me and, you know, be that kind of teacher and stuff. So I told him that, and
That's okay.
he said thanks for telling him that he was a good teacher. You know, I never had him as a teacher, but he was that age group, and he was Mr. Rennie, Al Rennie.
Rennie, I know who you
Him and his wife are usually sitting over here. When the power was out, they were always coming here.
What's his name? Her name, Marsha?
She said she used to teach at Redpath, but I didn't know her then.
Yeah, her name is Marsha.
Okay. Well, he was here one time meeting his daughter, and you know, I've learned a little bit about him now that I never knew. But he was always a decent fellow. That must be my acrylic. I don't know why else that would be here. Does that look like it's 2 feet by 2 feet?
I would say so.
Huh, okay. Well, apparently Murray has scrap laying around, so I told him if he had a 2 foot piece, 2 foot by 2 foot piece, I'd be happy to have it. Because the one thing I was always told that in the future, water is going to be a very valuable resource. But how do you get water pure? So I'm trying to come up with a way of using buckets to evaporate and condensate water so that it can be used all over the place. And I found out that buckets are basically everywhere now. You know, I've seen videos in Africa, and the women are using the plastic buckets on their head the way they used to use those old buckets. And I didn't realize that they were that readily. I don't know if I'll do very successful with that. I'll have to get one of those yokes for the shoulders, and I'll have to put a bucket on either side, and then I get double the work done. And it'll balance me out and help me walk straight.
There you go.
Well, what you do is,
That's all you need.
if one bucket you put for 4 gallons, the other put in 6, so it'll keep you up straight. Well, with your high shoulder won't go low.
Well, tonight's quite the night. I ran into Karen in Lakefield. I met her neighbor because she was with her. They were walking together, so the neighbor was, you know, fun complaining about the fact that if Karen had a driven, she would get a ride now with her groceries.
Pam, here's, I'll let you read this kind of morbid, but it's a death page. But Stuart Willisborough, and there's that, guy that we didn't know, Steve Rude, yeah. And Murray Bolton, do you know him? Frank Guest.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, Fred. Kim. You got a Kim. Kim. Oh, dear.
I also have a Linda and a Diane too.
Yeah, I know.
So a Kim's a person, not an item? A Kim is a person, not an item?
That's a person, yeah.
Okay. I thought maybe there was some kind of item out there that I knew nothing about. I was about to ask, what is a Kim?
Our daughter-in-law, her, yeah, our daughter. Her daughter. Her daughter came.
Not the same one.
We got a granddaughter-in-law, her name's Kim too.
Oh, have you?
We have, Linda and Diane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still goes for,
Yes, it was David Reed used to be his, he used to live in Burley. Oh, yeah, he was a Reed family. He was an athlete.
You're trying to make me blue, are you?
You gotta pull that off.
Oh, is it just a cover?
Eh?
Okay.
Yeah. You knew that.
I don't know lots of things, and I don't assume until I find out. So I would have looked eventually, but I'm not going to, pretend I'm an expert when I know absolutely nothing.
It's just a spout, not a spurt.
Exactly. Uh-huh. I don't honestly know her name, but she told me she's from India too.
Oh, okay.
So this is another one of the girls from India. So there's more than, we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce her name. I told her to her face. I would have thought she was Hispanic. And I don't know if I'll get in trouble for calling her my little Mexican.
You're what?
My little Mexican.
Mexican?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because that's what I would have thought that she was technically if I hadn't been told. She told me after that. She's always smiling. Except I haven't seen it so much yet today.
Give me a whole one this time.
Hello. I would like the snacker, please.
Snack wrapper?
Yes.
This one?
For now. Are you saying I'm getting skinny?
She can have ranch or chipotle.
We'll go with the ranch, please.
Yes, 261.
And can you let your boss know that when she has a minute, she needs to take care of the napkins?
Yeah, sure.
Because everybody's taking them out of there, and pretty soon there's going to be none at all. So before that becomes an issue.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, yeah. Did we fill that one? Okay.
This one is empty, and that one's getting emptied. Everybody's going to it. Exactly. The nerve.
I know, right?
Exactly. Oh, now she's
No,
got
go ahead,
customers.
I'll grab the customer.
Okay.
Hi there.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Modify. Yes, I am. Listen, you.
Street.